Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Thought podcast, where we're talking about issues you're probably thinking about. My name is Lynette.
And my name is Z.
And today we are joined by a good friend of Z's. This is my first meeting him virtually. His name is John. We're continuing our conversation on grief. Prior to this episode, we had Hukwa on the last episode talking about grief as it relates to her and her mom, like losing her mom. And that was a very in-depth conversation. It's very eye-opening for myself personally to kind of see the trajectory of it and all the emotions, especially coming from the perspective of her, for it happening in Africa, Ghana, Africa, where it happened, and her kind of going through the motions of tradition and how it relates with grief there and how she experienced it. So it was really insightful, and we really appreciate her vulnerability in coming in and having that conversation with us. So today we're continuing that conversation in a little bit of a twofold for John, who is going to be talking to us about grief as it relates to his mom and brother. So we're gonna dive in the conversation and talk a little bit in depth about how that looks for him, how he's still dealing with it, whether or not he is, and yeah, have that conversation. So we really appreciate you coming. I'm gonna pass the virtual mic over to you to give a little bit of an intro as to who you are, what you do, just who's John. So over to you.
No. First of all, thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here, and thank you for the invite, Z. I've always, I wouldn't say I'm a big talker, but I like conversations, and I think how Z and I started our friendship, how it started was just countless of emails back on Outlook in the summer of 2011, and it was just a variety of topics and inside jokes that are still funny today. I wouldn't get into that. However, yeah. So my name is John. I currently live in Embrun, but I consider myself an Ottawa lifer. I public servant, so I'm not going to say my employer's name.
No,
not giving anybody free advertising on this podcast here, and kudos to the both of you for really doing this and opening this space, and really it is especially for this topic of grief. To me, it's therapeutic to be talking about it, and people deal with grief in so many ways. And me talking about my experience, my journey, and also listening to others' journeys and experiences really helps a lot, just going through the motion and kind of living through this continuum with this whole, this new person, this new you, that you're going to be just living through others' experiences, see what they're going through, and it's a community. And so both of you to really take this initiative and giving people a virtual mic, and sometimes not an actual mic. Kudos to both of you, and hoping to tune in to many more episodes of your podcast.
Awesome, thank you so much. Z?
Yeah, I appreciate that so much, John. But John, we go further back than those Outlook emails. So John and I actually used to live.
I was shy before.
We actually used to live in the same building.
Oh.
It's not advertising. South of Ottawa. Let's just say south of Ottawa. And they had a swimming pool, and so I used to swim there. John and I used to swim there often, and I used to see him in the hallway and just be like, "Oh, what's up?" But then we started swimming, and then we started having conversations and talking. And because we're both talkers, like we were just talk. So Lynette, you and I talk a lot. John is like talker. So he was being shy. You were being quite what's the word? Modest, John. Yeah. But the one thing that over the years, like John and I have kept in touch, like here and there. Life just happened, and we kind of drifted apart. But John was there for me through one of my really, really dark times in 2010, 2011. You were, I always tell you that you're like my angel, right? You know that, John.
I
So
I never, and that's maybe, sorry for cutting you off on that. I never knew what Z was going through, but I was just like, hey, this is a new friend I have. She's so
Wow.
cool. She
Wow.
reads a lot of books, and
Thank
thanks to Z, I started reading quite a lot of books. I think
Oh, wow.
before meeting Z, I may have read maybe one book, and
One a year?
no, one in my whatever since my birth.
That was kind.
But yeah, so yeah, that to me, yeah, hearing that she was going through such a hard time, to me, it was like, when I look back at 2011, it's fond memories of that. But anyways, Z, go ahead.
he was having fond memories, but me, I was like, I am dying.
I
Help.
need help.
I need help.
Like I'm blinking twice.
Right? Like, can you see that I am suffering?
I was just having those meat and cheese pies at that
Yeah.
Lebanese place.
That Lebanese spot, yeah, and those emails, yeah. So it was really the conversations, and like, to jump in, like, I also, your mom was also like a mom to me as well. When we lived in Albion, because there you go, I said the name, because you and mom lived together, and then, like, I would see her and she would always say, ma fille, comment ça va? English speakers, my daughter, how are you? So just to jump in, like, John, like, why don't you tell us, like, from wherever, like.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could, and I apologize if I'm like jumping all over the place. Feel free, Lynette, and yourself, Z, to like steer me back in the right direction, because still, while we're talking, emotions will come, and I'll go. And I'm open book, like, no, I'm not holding anything back, because I said it's a therapeutic. It's sorry, like, you'll be playing the therapist role in the conversation.
Happy to. So maybe let's start with your mom. Like, it's like, what's the relationship you had with your mom?
Yeah, so with my mom, and as Z had mentioned, my mom was not only, a mom to me, but she was seen as a mother. Others in the community saw her as their mother. Like, every time she'd see someone, like, Z should say, my fee, my daughter, how are you? Like, she would really was the mother of many. And the bond that I had with my mom was, I'm the last born in the family. So, as I became an adult, I grew up, it's like the reverse. The older I got, the babier I become. So I just got closer and closer to my mom. Like, there's some weekends, and this is me in my 20s. Most folks in the 20s on the weekends would rather go out, have fun, party, club, and whatever, or church and whatnot. I was cherishing staying at home, mom, whatever. Watch. I don't know if you know the movie Sarafina. We'll watch it for like 50 times. We know every single word, but it felt new. But it was just that moment, sharing that moment with her. So those bonds, and to me, I really cherish those moments. But then in my head, there's always something in my head saying, "Well, cherish these moments, because they won't last. They won't last. They won't be here forever." So I always had those, like, I want to be present, but also that fear. And she started having some health issues, like she had high blood pressure. So there was a few, doctor visits, and those are the days where you're thinking, oh, it's actually true. I may not have her for the rest of my life here. So let me even cherish more presence. And then, so back in 2016, on November 15, 2016, that's when she passed, and I can, like, my world is crumbled, like it stopped, basically, right? So there's really no, how can I say, it's hard to really feel that pain, like it's pain, it's void, you can't really describe it. But the interesting fact, or maybe the experience that I was going through, so because I was the next of kin, because it was just her and I in Ottawa, so I was the next of kin. So basically, I had to take care and be there for the funeral arrangements and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I was busy throughout that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
appointments to funeral home, appointments to finding venues, churches, to the cemetery. It's surreal. Like you're going through all those
Absolutely.
emotion, right? Like you never really think of things like, every time you go to a doctor appointment or somewhere, you're going to, on a date of birth, your DOB, you put your name on there, and then there's DOD, date of death. You're like, oh, this is hits you hard, right? It's different. So, anyways, I was busy during that time, like arranging for family to come, people calling, messages are coming through, condolences, and then shout out to Z. Z made some time to. We hadn't spoken in, we haven't seen each other in, I believe, in like 4 or 5. Probably last time I saw you was when I came to see. No, I came to see Azarel.
As well,
yeah, in 2014. But then it had been 2 years I hadn't seen you since. Yeah, and then Z found some time to pass to my sister's place and visit. So there was a lot going on. I could barely remember what was happening, but because I was just busy, so I hadn't had time to properly grieve. Right.
Yeah. So when was that? When you finally like, now it's time.
Yeah. So when so I had my brother from England come, and other my sister in the US came over. So friends and family from the States and England came after the burial, which was November 19th, which is also the date of birth of the birthday of my wife, November 19th. So it's kind of like, anyways. So when everybody left, which was the 26th of November, my brother was the last one from England. He was the last one to leave. I dropped him off at the airport, and that's when reality sank in. Yeah, that's when it was like, how like the way I explain it and how I experienced it is like you walk into a room and then you turn off the light, and it's just black. So it's total emptiness, and it was just me, myself, and my thoughts, right? So that was the beginning of a long battle, a battle that I'm still going through. There are good days, there are bad days. There are days where I'm just like, okay, I don't have it. And there are days where I'm like, I really need to seek help, professional help. Like I need to talk to somebody. And I really encourage people. And I know some from Congo, just like there's sometimes some taboo about mental health and whatnot. But I just encourage people, if you need to talk to somebody, if you need to seek a therapist, do it. It's liberating. So anyways, so that to me was the experience. Like felt like I walked in a room and shut off the light and it was dark. So, and then begins the first, right? First Sunday without mom. First, Christmas without mom. First, so and so. So one thing that I found really maniacal about was because mom passed me Tuesday, November 15th was a Tuesday. I started counting Tuesdays. I was like, one Tuesday passed, I'd be like, yeah, one Tuesday since mom passed. 2 Tuesdays since mom passed. And then it felt like
you find that that's like a coping mechanism, or was it kind of like what was going through your mind? What made you want to do that? Because I mean, there's different ways people go about it.
Yeah. So to me, it was more like keeping alive, like in like keeping in my memory. Like so kind of like keeping track of that day always reminded me of her, right? That to me was the thing really I wanted to keep. So now the interest, well, I mean, I keep saying interesting, but it might not be really interesting. It's just we're saying it. People would encourage me, like, yeah, just think of your happy times with her. Think of the times that you spent with her. And to me, thinking of those times are are the times that I'm saddest the most. That's the times that hurt me the most, because I'm like, yeah, I won't have those again, right? I may be having a bad day. I don't have the luxury to pick up in call, right? Or I don't have the luxury to have, some folks would say, and sometimes in movies, folks would say, oh yeah, I still have my mom's or my dad's or my brother's, somebody's like your loved one's voicemail, and you say to me, I don't have that, right? So keeping, thinking of those, of her alive, to me, it was just like, just heart-wrenching. Like, I couldn't do that. The only thing I could do is I can remember the day, what I felt when I got the phone call at 4:00 in the morning, telling me, sister saying, hey, come over, I think mom's not doing well. Come right now. And the feeling that I had driving there, I'm like, oh well, I've had phone calls like this before about her. It turned out okay. She'll be fine. Said my prayers. I'm like, God, you're in control. I trust. Put all my trust in you. You'll help mom pull through this and getting to my sister's place. Previous calls, there was just one ambulance, but this one, there was 2 ambulances, 1 fire truck, a police car. It's, it's here. Like, like, it doesn't feel good. And then going down and going to my sister's place and hearing all those machines beeping and sounds of her trying to be revived, where it was a lot of that just happening. I'm like, okay, well, that's the thing that I wanted to separate myself from that. But that Tuesday, those 2 hours is really what I wanted to keep in mind and just keep counting. I'm like, I was there when you transitioned. I was there. You weren't alone. We were all there. So that's really the coping mechanism, or I call it just like, it was kind of maniacal of me to just counting Tuesdays. And by the way, I think I lost track at 235 Tuesdays.
Wow. Z, anything you wanna jump in on?
I'm struggling to keep my emotions in check. So I guess how, because I know you said you were counting Tuesdays, but how, like, when you wake up in the morning, like, I've never experienced this kind of grief before, right? Because this kind of grief, I can only imagine, is unbearable. So I can't say I feel you, because I can't say that, right? I think it's almost disingenuous for people that haven't experienced that to be like, I know what you're going through. Like, no.
I thank you for bringing that up.
Did you hear a lot of people say that to you? Like,
a lot of people say that. Heard a lot of people say that before, but and a good and this is a family member who approached me and said, listen, I'm going to tell you that, I know what you're going through, because I don't, but just know that I'll be here if you need me. Right. And to me, that's what I really felt as well. Like, people come and say, oh, I'm sorry, I know what you're going through. There was a friend who reached out on Facebook Messenger saying, yeah, I'm really sorry. I lost my 2 parents when I was 11 years old, so I know what you're feeling. In my head, I was like, I'm hurting here. Losing 2 parents?
Listen.
If this is what I'm doing right now, now you give me I'm sorry to be maybe a little bit jokey about this, but 2-for-1 discount? For that, I can't. So sorry, Z. I just wanted to applaud you on that point that you made.
Yeah. It's okay. I just think that, I think that as someone, as a friend, I think back to that time, and I always felt like I was at a loss of words. So what can I say? So like, I guess I have my thoughts are also all over the place. So let me recenter myself. I had a question.
Okay.
Outside of counting your Tuesdays, when you had days where you feel like you couldn't, like what did you do on those days? You know, because I know you work, you're a public servant, you said you're a public servant, and like did you take bereavement time? And then after that, like how did you manage, like, you know, day to day?
Yeah. So I'm grateful that I had a very understanding manager. And maybe this is a plea when I don't know, the Prime Minister or Doug Ford or the Minister of Labor watch this episode of the podcast here.
Please watch.
Please watch and take notes. This is a good thing maybe to think about those who are in jobs that don't have the benefit, because life happens to people, and you know, death happens and people need to take time to breathe. 2 days is not enough. 5 days is generous, not enough, but at least give somebody a week to be with the family and they not suffer financially. However, I was really, because I was still new in my role. I had been with the employer for about 6 months, so and I was a temporary employee, so I didn't even have vacation. So,
right.
But my program manager at the time was very, very generous and flexible. Gave me, like, literally said, take the time that you need. Do not worry about the rest. And to me, that really touched me. That she was able to do that. So I didn't have to worry about, my job and whatnot. And really, that was the last thing to worry about at that time, because I wasn't really thinking straight. How did I cope with it? So, because when I got the call from my sister, it was 4:00. Mom was pronounced dead at 5:45. So for about 4 to 6 months, I woke up at 5:00 every single day. I could not sleep past, like, no matter when I went to sleep. Fall asleep at 1, go to sleep at 10. If I could sleep, 5:00 I'd be up. And I'm up with that heartache. Like, it's feel like someone's really, like, just stepping on your heart with, like, sharp cleats, right? It's painful, it hurts. It's one of those feelings that, I would say, at least if you have a bruise on your skin, you can touch it, you can maybe ice it a little bit. There's no icing heartache. There's no icing, hurt feelings. So for about 4 to 6 months, I woke up 5:00 every single day, and it's waking up in tears, waking up hurting. It was really a struggle. It was really, really bad. Especially that December, right? That because Mom died in November, so December, it's Christmas right around the corner. And what do you see around Christmas? Time with family, this and that, ritual mothers. To me, it was just too much, right? So I wasn't watching TV, and it was just me in my room, basically that. Come back home. We're in Canada. We know what the weather's like in December, how dark it gets early. So by 4:35, it's already dark. So I'm home from work. I'm in my room, and whatever I had at lunch, that's it. And that's it.
That was it.
Yeah. So and I had to change my work schedule because sleeping was really a struggle. So I couldn't sleep. That means I couldn't wake up on time. So my manager and I arranged that I could start late at 10:00 and I'd finish at 6. So by the time I'm done work, go back home and straight to my bed. Right? It was hard, but I kept, there were 2 things I kept thinking to myself. One, I really got angry with God, and I know Z always called me undercover church boy. but I was really angry with God. Like, God, you took away my mom. I'm hurt. You did this to me. Fix it. Make me better.
Yeah.
I want you to heal it, right? I want you to heal me. So
Yeah.
one really scripture that stuck with me was Ecclesiastes 3. I believe it. Chapter 3, verses 5, where there's a time to weep and a time to laugh, time to die, type of, I might be switching those, but so that kept me going, right? Like, because on this earth there's time for everything, so just keep at it, keep going, right? But it was tough. It was tough, especially I remember the first day when I got back to work after. That was hard because I get to my desk and there are flowers, chocolates, and there I'm like,
all the markers to remind
exactly, right? Like a little shrine. It felt like I was the one who passed away. Who died, and all these flowers there. It's just a reminder. I'm like, I can't work like this. I had to take another day off. I'm like, I had to go home.
Right.
So it was hard.
You mentioned your spouse a couple of times, and I guess from my experience, I wasn't married, so like the dynamic looked a little different for me when I was grieving. But what did it look for you in relation to your spouse, and you on one hand grieving your mom, but on the other hand trying, I suppose, to be present, right, with your family, and even if it's not only with your spouse, but present with your siblings and just family in general, work itself, right? Trying those two things. How did that look for you?
We were just like really started dating at that time. We had been dating, I think, a year. It had been a year that we had been dating, so it was just boyfriend and girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
And to her, it was surreal. It was new, right? Like, she hadn't, and this is her words, where she hadn't really experienced something like this before. And seeing, who I was, and just in a second, just see it totally
switch.
Switch, something like, a light got dimmed, right? So it was eye-opening for her. It was scary because, she first seeing a lot of people really get hurt, and it was, in Congolese fashion, the matanga song, like when somebody comes home, it's like everybody starts crying, and then you pause. Somebody else comes back again. Emotions come back up. People cry, and then you can't fight sound. So for her, this is something totally new. Seeing crying.
She's not from your tribe. She's not from your country.
No, she's Jamaican.
Okay. Okay. So that's totally different.
Yeah, exactly.
Goodness.
Well, born and raised in Canada, but her parents are Jamaican, and
that's a little daunting. Like,
it was
overwhelming.
Overwhelming.
To say the least.
Overwhelming. Yes, it was overwhelming. But she was really my rock, and through this moment, I don't know. I don't know what I would have been if she wasn't there. She really helped a lot in terms of making sure that I was eating, that I was taking breaks, that I was resting. Because you get caught up in everything, trying to coordinate things, making sure that everybody is at the right place, making sure that the funeral arrangements are going smoothly, that you forget about yourself.
That's right.
Like they always say on the plane, if the cabin depressurizes, start helping others, put the mask on yourself first, and then help others, right? I was kind of doing the opposite. I'm like, putting mask on everybody.
Everybody else, yeah.
Exactly.
But sometimes there's some situations causes you to have to do that, right? So you mentioned that you were next of kin. You know, the conversation we had that for last episode, the same thing. Like she had to kind of like gather herself. You know, there's no time to kind of get into the morning state and pause and all of that, because it's just like immediate, right? And I'm sure like with everybody it looks different, but similar to yours, she was like, it was more like, let's go, let's do this section, let's do this thing, and then maybe I can catch my breath later on. So completely understand. Do you want to anything? Is he still like
I feel like no, I don't have any.
No way. I guess I'll go. But John, I think what I've been thinking about is like we go through these stages of grief, right? And I mean, it never goes away. It never
I guess that was the question I was gonna ask.
Yeah. It never like, you know, you never like there's not a time that is just like not surprising or shocking to you that the person is gone. You know, depending on the kind of relationship you had with the individual, there's always time that it will probably come into your it's in your subconscious always, right? So I think my question would then be like, when was it that you finally thought, okay, listen, I'm at a place of acceptance, like, you know, I'm a place of like, I've accepted it, and then henceforth I am going to think of it in this particular way, and what would that particular way be for you? Because sometimes it's like more of like a coping mechanism to be like, okay, I've accepted it, now I am going to look at it this way, right? And what was the way that you chose to look at it? When did you accept it, and what was it? What does it look like for you now?
Good question. I never really, I don't think I've accepted it.
Wow.
Yeah, the only thing I've accepted was that, you know, this is what I'm going to carry with me for the rest of my life.
Right.
But you know, the 5 stage of grief, then again, like,
you still probably had to.
Yeah, I don't know, probably at 0. I'm at some stage where,
wow.
You know, yeah, it just never, yeah, don't think I have accepted it. And it's all blurry, right? Like, to me, I think the acceptance part, to answer your question, the acceptance part maybe came, well, I would say not maybe, came when I stopped count of my Tuesdays at 2:35. Right. And then that's why I was like, oh, I don't remember. Is it 2:37, 2:36? And I'm like, okay, well, John, let it go. Right. So that probably what I could say is something closer to acceptance.
That's fair.
The other thing was a visit to the cemetery. Like, with the first month, I would go every 2 days, 3 days, and this is December. There's snow, and here I am with my shovel that I got at the Borab, and that shovel breaks. I'm like, I'm going to get another one, and just shoveling snow and just making the place pretty. So I'll go every other day, and then by January it would be every weekend that I'll go. And that kept on for about 2 years, I think. That every weekend, either the Saturday or the Sunday. Usually it would be the Sunday, because Sunday we'll go to church together. So after church, I'll go to the cemetery, sit down, tell her what was preached at church and what was the message. Just sit and talk to her, and that would be every weekend. So, And then those kind of habits started fading, and it was like every maybe 2 weeks. But and then I'd feel so bad. I'm like, oh, I gotta go back to every week. And I would think, I'm like, okay, well, if we reversed roles, if I was the one who died and mom was still, knowing my mom should be at my grave like literally every day, and she doesn't drive. She would say, I'm walking there. I gotta go be with my son. So that is how I like thought about it. I'm like, well, if it was me, mom would be here every day. So I gotta be here as much as I can, right? So those are the things that and then once I started losing those habits, I would say maybe the acceptance settles in, but it just blurs, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, and then like when I started going like I'll say maybe or like once a month, and then life just deals another card. Like, all right, there you go. Now your brother's gone, right? And it just pulls you back in. It's like quicksand, like pulls you right back in, and it's like, oh God.
Wow. What was the dynamic of that? And that was how long after your mom passed that your brother passed?
So that was 6 years and 8 months.
After,
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, 6 years and 8 months after, and then my brother dies. So it's just pulls you again, right? Like you go through that first month of
feel like you're getting your head above water, and then
exactly, like literally you sunk in with the Titanic. Somehow you've survived and you're swimming your way up, and by the time that you start feeling, oh, I can see the sunlight, all right, let me keep swimming up, and then something pulls you right back into the bottom of the ocean. Like, all right, gotta do this again, but I'm running out of energy. Oh my God, just take control, right? Like, so.
No kidding. Kidding. And what was the relationship like with your brother?
And where was your brother? Was he in Canada or was he?
No, he was in Kenya. So my brother was in Kenya when he passed, and the relationship was great. Like we kept in touch a lot. Like we were always talking. Like, and he's the first of the boys in the family. So just to give you a context, I still say that we're a big family. 8 kids. The first 2 are girls, and then the rest, he's the eldest of the boys. So so he was great. We joked around a lot. Like, he was really the clown of the family. So many jokes. Loved imitating people's accents, especially in Kenya. Like, he was just the life of the party, right? So losing that again, like, it's just another blow. And the underrated, and this part my heart goes out to people who travel to go to a funeral, or it's hard getting on that plane.
No, it's very hard.
It's like, that to me was like the longest trip to Kenya. And then coming back it's not easy anyways, because you're coming back, you're like, I'm leaving my loved one here. So and I was just opened up just another side of like grieving that I hadn't totally thought about. I thought I'd gone through it all. I'm like, oh my God, here's
it's a different kind of, oh my gosh.
Is it would you say it's a different kind of grief, losing a sibling compared to losing a parent? Or
it's that's a very good question, Z. Like, I hadn't thought about it, but what I could say is that it's only different because having gone through that first shock with losing my mom, I knew what was happening to me. Versus when mom passed, I had no idea what was going on. Like I didn't know what was happening to me. But with my brother, I had those reference points. I was like, yeah, I'm feeling this way because something has happened. I know I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep because I've been through this before. So it's like deja vu, right? But now on the flip side, the heartache was just as
intense.
Yeah, as dense, right? It was hard. It was really hard because then I'm like, mom comes back again. I'm thinking about mom, and here's my brother, and I can think about his voice saying, you're okay, you're okay, you'll be good, and it's just so hard. Like I don't know, I don't know what to do here, God. Like I can't be mad at you this time. I really can't be mad at you this time. I can't question what you did. But I'm broken. Like I'm really broken, right? So it was, and now traveling. When you're traveling, so giving your passports, you're at the airport, safe travels, or you're going to see family, enjoy a vacation. Like I have no idea what I'm going to do, right? Like I'm having this like fake smile on my face, but I'm not there. Like yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, and so you're thinking of all kind of thoughts. I'm like, this needs to end. Like I can't take this anymore, right? I can't take this anymore. And I'm an overthinker. I think a lot, and sometimes to my, and that's why I'm also seeking help, seeing somebody, speak to somebody, because those thoughts sometimes they just eat me alive. And then because I'm like, well, this is probably not the last time I'm feeling this way. But I shouldn't be thinking that way. I should be present in the moment. I should be thankful for what God has given me. And I'm extremely blessed. Like God has blessed me with a lot of things. Things could be a lot worse. Like there are people in a lot worse situation going through a lot worse than me. Like I'm blessed to be in a country where I can wake up in the morning, go to a store, buy food, come back home, have water every day, electricity, and I'm healthy. Don't have to go to, that's maybe another chapter of my youth that I can talk about when my battle with leukemia when I was a teenager. However, staying with grief. So there's a lot of things that I need to be thankful to God, despite going through the challenges, the ups and downs of life every day. But my just thinking, every time I'm thinking, I'm like, and that's the last time I'm feeling this way. My father is pushing, his 80s. Like I don't know how long I still have it, right? But I shouldn't be thinking that way. And but something's gonna happen. So
it's a tricky balance, isn't it? Because it's like, I heard this quote the other day and I was like, man, this is so dreary. But there are two things that are sure in life: paying taxes, well, depending on where you live,
and who you are,
and death, right?
Yeah.
And it's tricky because it's like, I wonder if on the one hand, I think maybe it's a balancing act where it's on the one hand recognizing that assuredly life and death are bound to happen, but also knowing that even though that happens, still being present and appreciating the life that we have at the moment. You know what I mean? Because I always ask myself, I went to Kenya over the Christmas break because my parents, by the way, John, my parents live in Kenya now. And you know, they had a conversation with us about their will and like all these things and like, you know, what's being passed down and it was a really strange conversation with my siblings and I and them. And like the whole time, like I was looking at them like, this is very surreal. Like, why are they telling us all of this stuff, you know? But then it occurred to me, it's like, yeah, they're getting older.
And the time that they've seen all of you at the same time.
Yeah, this is the first time that they've seen all of us together in 10 years, right? So, and because like I had an uncle that passed away very suddenly, and you know, like our culture, it's like, whose land and who's this and and who's inheriting what, it was all over the place. So because he didn't have a will, he didn't have any of these things. So my parents took the time to really explain to us what goes where and who gets what. But it was really shocking for me because I realized that they're not going to be around forever. And that is 100% sure that they won't be around forever. And so knowing that, like my mom came to visit a couple of months ago, and it really changed how I interacted with her, simply because I knew that she wasn't going to be around forever. And so I wonder if like maybe it's wise to have that balance in mind, knowing that they won't be around forever, but also recognizing that as long as they are around, enjoy that time. You know what I mean? I don't know. Yeah. And sorry, part of the reason why I don't have a lot of questions is because, like I said, I haven't experienced this. So for me, it just feels like gratuitous to just say, and I think, and this, you know what I mean? So Lynette, please forgive me. John, please forgive me if I'm just,
that's completely fine.
That's
completely fine. Sometimes it's a hard topic to navigate. So it's a very hard topic to I can't stress that enough, how hard it is to have these conversations, and sometimes it's hard, and like, you know, John, correct me if that's not the situation for you, but sometimes it's just hard to talk about at certain points. It takes a bit to kind of get yourself to even talk about it, to even acknowledge that this has happened. Because grieving looks so different for so many reasons and so many people in so many ways, right? So I mean, like, it could look different depending on who it is, what kind of relationship you had with the person. It's surreal, just all the emotions, right? So it takes a lot of vulnerability, it takes a lot of intentionality, some healing has to happen. That I completely understand, Z, that there sometimes, like, if you haven't experienced it, it's almost like you're at a loss for words. So you're like, what do I even say? Like, you know, I haven't, you know, because he's a little pretentious if you feel like you engage in that way. But I get it. It takes a lot of vulnerability, and I appreciate you John, having this being in this capacity to be able to talk about it the way, and so eloquently, in the way that you have you know, portrayed it, and honestly, I applaud you for how far you've come in the journey of, like, you know, wherever you are at in terms of like the grief. I know some days are not easy. I'm sure some days are harder than others, but you push through for your family, for your sake, you know, just to put one foot in front of the other. So I applaud you. Pat yourself on the back, give yourself grace, extend yourself grace. Know that you are doing well, because sometimes grief can hit you like a ton of bricks, and it just sits on you, and you really don't even want to get out of bed. You just kind of don't want to do anything. But to get yourself up every day and to do the things that you do for your family, for yourself, whatever, takes a lot of guts. And I applaud you for that. And thank you for sharing this with us.
Thank you so much. Like I said, this, and again, I really can't emphasize enough how this platform, this forum that you offer to people like myself and others who've come and who have been graced by your presence and your podcast to really talk about they what they go through, what they've gone through, the marathon that we're running in this race of hurt. It's, to me, like I said, this is really therapeutic, and especially talking to a friend like and now you've been added to the roster, but talking to a long-term friend, Z, whom I've shared a lot with. We've had so many laughs and just being able to talk with her again and just share what my journey has been. To me, this is therapy. This is step one of many others to come in terms of just seeking that help, sharing my journey and learning from others. So I'm also really, if this is a topic that will continue for the foreseeable future, just seeing what the other guests are going to talk about and share, because that's how I quote unquote heal, right? You see what others are doing, what's worked for them, maybe take one here, take one there, and build that community. But no, this has really been great. But I have one question and this could be for either of you, and especially for you, Z, from your perspective, that you've said you haven't really experienced this, but I'm just curious to know, when friend calls you and say, "Hey, I've lost a loved one, someone who's really close, father, mother, brother, spouse." What comes first? Like, what's your first instinct, thought, and how do you go about conveying your feelings or condolences? Like, what comes to you first? Just curious what others feel when they get that message from a friend or somebody that they're close with.
Yeah, I'll go first because I've had that call from both of you, actually. And I remember, sorry, I remember when Lynette, I remember when you messaged me and you said your dad passed away. I think the first thing that I felt was like, what? Yeah, and even with you, John, same thing. I think with John it was different because I knew your mom, right? And I didn't know your dad, Lynette. But it literally, what? And I think I'm starting to learn a little bit more about my personality. I feel like I take a lot of things very, very personally, so I guess the word is empath. I don't like using these trendy words, but
buzzwords.
buzzwords. But I've been reading a lot about it because I take a lot of things to heart, and for me, I just feel pain because it's like, how are you, man? How are you going to manage? Oh, that's so hard. And then also the loss of not knowing what to say, because there's nothing. What can you say? And I guess that was the question that I was gonna ask you, John. We're Christians and stuff, so we know, and we have that assurance that this is not the end, but it's just the next step. But sometimes we just say it and it's in theory, even though it's true, but we'll see when we get there. So that always seems very not superficial, but it just seems like it's like a cop-out comfort to me, even though it's true, but it still feels like cop-out. So I guess to answer your question, if the first response is always like, what? And how are you doing? But then also the question is, do I give space or do I call every single day?
hard.
It's hard. And then it's like, if you call every day, are you bothering the person? If you don't call at all, are you leaving the person to their devices? You know what I mean? So I think that that's really difficult. And then a part of me also thinks about, man, when my parents pass away, what's that gonna be like? Because if I could feel like this for somebody else's parents, what the heck? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's what I experienced with both of you, at least. I just felt especially with you, John, like I remember when I came to your sister's house, like I had a hard time because I was like trying so hard not to cry, because I felt pain for you and I felt pain for your mom, but at the same time I was like, oh, it's not about me. Let me just, and John and I, like, we banter a lot, like we do a lot of jokes and we just joke about stuff. So I was like, maybe if we just joke around, it'll be okay. But then at the same time, it's like, but this is not the time to joke, so there's just
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot for the individual, then it's a lot for you in a different kind of way.
But then I get to go home, and I sleep, and the harsh thing is life continues. So like I'll have a hard day, or I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about John, I'm thinking about Lynette, I'm thinking about this. Oh man, I hope they're okay. But then like 10 minutes later, it's like, okay, well, I have to work. So I can just work. Whereas, I can't imagine you can't just
if I could put a pin on that, on the life goes on part, that was a harsh reality or realization that I just saw, when, because my class at my sister's place. So after the ambulance came and picked her up, started making phone calls, and I remember driving because I had to go to the funeral home, and just looking around the nice and shiny Tuesday morning, people waiting for the bus to go to work, people walking to a community center, kids going to school. I'm like, nobody around here knows that this person driving here is getting pieces.
So much
pain. That should be impaired driving right there, impaired by pain. But so it's just like life goes on. You look around, everything else goes on. Like everything else is on schedule, people going to their appointments, everybody but you.
So surreal.
Yeah,
it's very
surreal. Sorry, unpin that. Lynette, we've both gone through kind of the same, but I'm just curious from your perspective, especially having lost your father, from what I'm hearing. So when somebody calls you and say, hey, there's a lot, like so and so has passed, like what kind of like, what's that? What does that look? What's the process like? What do you go through? Like,
oh man, similar to Z in the sense that like pain, and I'm kind of one of those people that just kind of I just want to help all the time. Like I just want to know what I can do for you, right? So I guess for me right away, it is that pain of like, oh man, like I know what you could be going through, right? It may not look the same as me, but I know what you could be going through, what the possibilities of things that you could be going through. Because on some levels, maybe sometimes, thinking back on people that have, confided me in that way, I may have a sense of an idea of what their relationship looked like with the individual, So for me, I'm like, well, like you were really close. So I have the thinking of, oh man, you could be going through this. But then immediately I'm also like, okay, how does that person want to be, how does that person want to be helped, right? And then kind of like leave it to them to kind of navigate that. I remember very vividly, a close friend of mine lost a cousin to suicide, and I didn't know the cousin or anything like that, but I knew her, but I also didn't know how she would handle it. I knew her in one capacity, but I didn't know her how she would handle it. Like I didn't have a frame of reference as to like how she would handle it. And I think at that time too, I had not lost my dad yet, so the perspective was also very different. So I was constantly reaching out. And there were times that she wouldn't reply, but because I didn't have that frame of reference, I was like, oh, why is she not like, replying or anything like that? But in hindsight, I'm like, wow, like she probably just needed some space, or she probably just needed time to just like think, or maybe the calls were overwhelming, or the messaging was overwhelming, and she just didn't know how to reply to people that were messaging her. Because like, what do you say? Thank you for listening, for thinking about me, or like it's just a hard place to be on both ends. So I think usually for me, I just kind of like, I space it out. I try to space it out. I try to check in and just be available if the person needs anything, because I know sometimes too, the practical things are also very needed, because I've gone through money, especially depending on where you're coming from. Money is needed, and people were so gracious to me when my dad passed, to help out. Sometimes those practical things are very much needed, especially in our communities where we have to do all the things and try to gather everybody and just kind of keep going. So those practical things like food, some people just forget to eat because it's happened and you don't have taste in your mouth, is gone, and you just don't know, like you just like water tastes disgusting. And people gave me gift cards, and people gave me like sent food to my house, just to remind me, like as a marker, be like, eat something, like so those practical things I think are the first things that come to my mind on being on the flip side, on the other side of things, knowing that some people just need those practical things at the very beginning, and then later on the emotional stuff kind of happens because they're going through so much at the same time, and it's just so daunting. And people, the emotional side is not so much, at least for me, needed at the very beginning, but like the practical things, but the emotional stuff happens later when they can finally at least talk about it.
Time to think and
reflect. Time to think and reflect and kind of sit with it and realize that this is what has happened, and then they start confiding in you or whoever that may be. And I think it's also okay for it to be on the other side, to just know that they can also confide in somebody else and be okay with the fact that they can confide in somebody else, as long as they're talking to somebody. Just be like, at least you're talking to somebody, yeah. So.
Do you find that, and this is for both of you, do you find that did anybody like share scriptures with you guys and talk about God and his timing and all things work together for good? Do you find, did any of those, first of all, did anybody encourage you with that kind of talk? And did you find it encouraging at any point in time during your journey?
And John, you could go first.
Oh, okay. And I'm really going to be candid when I To me, well, first of all, I was thinking of when I was going through with my mom's thing. I wasn't there. I was not present. How I went from point A to point B, that's just God's miracle.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me where I was on November 16th or 17th, I would have no idea. But I knew I was somewhere. I knew I was at some funeral home. I knew I was at some building. But so when people would come to my sisters and start praying, like once everybody closes their eyes and prays, I'm already thinking, okay, I need to be here. I need to pick up somebody here. So I'm not even there. I'm not even present. Now, to your second part about if anybody shared scriptures, just to remind you again, remember when I said I was really angry with God? I didn't want to hear anything about scriptures at that time. Like, thank you, but I'm hurting. I don't want to hear. Yeah, I don't want to hear any of that.
Yeah.
Ironically, there's not just one scripture that I remembered. Ecclesiastes 3, verse, chapter 3, verse 4. Like, yeah, times for laughter and times to cry. And that's the only thing if somebody maybe came to me with that scripture, so maybe whoever's going to be listening to this, and if I ever lose somebody else in the future to me with that scripture, maybe I'll feel better at anything else. No, I'm not. I wasn't listening. I was hurting too much for me to even comprehend what was happening. To just be there and take it in and listen to someone preach and sing songs. I appreciated that, but for others, for those who came to see, to console the family, but for me personally, it wasn't the soup that I needed when I was hurting, right? But that's not to say that people should do that. And people are doing that, like Lynette said, they're trying their best to comfort you, right? Comfort people, support the family. That's why they're there to support and do what they can. So people do it in different forms and fashions. There's no one true way of doing it. Others really confide in spirituality, scriptures, others culture, others everything else, right? So it all works together. But for the person who's grieving, for me at that point in time personally, I wasn't there for it.
Yeah.
But interesting to see what Lynette. I'm sorry, can I just plug my laptop? I forgot that I needed to plug my laptop.
Sure.
So I'll be back. Maybe this is another scheduled break.
Okay.
Brought you by Champion.
All right.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Nice and warm sweater. Please purchase at your closest store. $19.99.
$19.99.
Oh my Lord.
Oh geez. Wow.
So are you locking your hair again? It looks so beautiful.
I am. I'm gonna go to Ime to fix it. I did this one myself. Yeah. So with the help of Cindy, and I'm gonna get her to Ime to kind of straighten the lines and like redo it a little bit, because I have a wedding coming up and was like, I need help.
Knowing your hair, by this time next year, it's just gonna go back to the same length as like wow. Oh, John's back.
Okay.
There we go.
I didn't hear any of that.
Oh, you're hearing me?
I think for me, it is helpful. I don't remember, because it was just so blurry at that time. Don't remember those who sent me scripture and all of that. I don't think many did, but I think at the very beginning, I think people just need at least for me, I needed just your honesty. Like, I know I know scripture is very helpful, but for me at least, until you get the chance to kind of sit with yourself and start reading those scriptures and start like actually diving to the word of God and just like leaning on God, those it could be very you can just kind of look at those scriptures very passively, and not really take it in unless, you know, the Holy Spirit can like speak a word into you and just kind of carry you through that moment. So you're not necessarily pointing to the scriptures people are sending you. You're just kind of like, this is what my strength can handle, and I am going to take this through this season. But I think in the moment, at least for me, what I needed was just people's presence and people's understanding of the time that I'm going through. Not so much scripture, because like it depends, I guess. Like for me, it was just I was in go motion. So the only thing that was carrying me through at that time was that we just need to get through this. We just need to get through the burial. We just need to get through all the logistics of it, taking him back home, doing this, doing that, going to do the funeral, doing that, and then just keeping my mom sane. And just kind of carrying her through this time, and just kind of being her rock and just carrying her through. That was the only thing on my mind. And then also just having my time with God. And so it wasn't so much like, oh, somebody sent me a scripture, and it was just like, to be very honest with you, those messages, I just looked at it and it was like, thank you, and then kept on going and just kept it moving. It wasn't until later that I kind of sat with the messages and all of that. But it is helpful. I think it's helpful regardless. And even the scriptures, I find that my friends it found it a little like, it was almost more like, what do you need? I'm here to help, more than it was scriptures. And that was I was grateful for that, because it was just like, I need practical things right now, as opposed to, and not to say that scripture is not helpful. And like I said, when I sat with myself and finally started reading through the messages, the messages I could understand, I can now sit with the scriptures and just like take them all in. But in the moment, it's just like, thank you for thinking about me. Thank you for sending this to me. But that's about it, right? And just kind of keep it moving. Scriptures are good. It's good, but I think if you're a Christian, the Holy Spirit, like, you're just really leaning on the Holy Spirit just to kind of carry you through the very beginning. So they're great. There's just, I think the time that is needed to kind of sit with it is, at least in our cultures, it's not usually there. So yeah, you kind of have to make time for it, but there's so much going on. There's so much on mind that it's not always easy.
I think, just to add on to that too, I think one thing that helped me most was songs. Like, I heard lots of like gospel songs that I listened with my mom. So those are the things that to me, that's really how I absorb messages. So there's quite a lot of songs I do, and I was just getting into Spotify then, so I could just curate my gospel song list, and it would really just pick the tracks that spoke to me, and because I was on the road a lot, so that was my way of really digesting what was going on with scriptures, and those scriptures were being sang in those songs.
Yeah, so it depends. It really depends.
I was gonna ask you, like, as we wrap up, do you guys have any advice for anyone that is currently grieving, who might be listening to this? Like, do you have any words of wisdom or anything that you can share to encourage the next person? John, we'll start with you as our guest of honor.
It's tough, because to me, it feels like I'm still that person that's still there. But my advice would be, surround yourself with, with your people, your loved ones, those who, you cherish, who cherish you the most. I think that social support is an underrated part of the grieving process. Being surrounded by people, you don't have to be talking to somebody, you don't have to be speaking with them. Just the mere presence around you. You could be in your room, in the darkness of your room, sleeping and just having your time, but just having people around you. I think there's an effect to it that I would, really encourage, and it also shows that you're not alone. You're not alone. That you're not alone going through this. Other people grieving with you. You're also not alone physically. There are others around you. So and that shows that if you need a shoulder to lean on, there are many shoulders that you can lean on while you're going through it. But from like a personal note, I would just say, if spirituality, faith, if you're a faith person, lean on to who you really see as your spiritual guide. For me, Christianity is my rock and my foundation. Christian and God and Jesus really are who I run to. The Holy Spirit guiding me through all this. So for me, that was something that stopped my rebellion. And bent enough. I would really use that, those scriptures, those Bible scriptures, those songs, and really I'll seek guidance. But that social support, social network, please.
Right.
It's very important.
I guess I would say, depending on who you are, but personally for me, talk about it. Talking about it and all, talking about the process was very helpful for me. Like if you are a talker like me, like for me, it almost it would kill me just to kind of keep it inside and just like bottle it up. So for me, about the whole process, how intense it was, and in terms of like the burial and all the traditional stuff that I went through, it was very almost a no-brainer for me to just kind of talk about the process and talk about what I hated and what I appreciated, what I didn't, what I did, laugh about it, and laugh about the things that you can laugh about. It was just a coping mechanism for me. So if you are able to talk about it and not bottle it up, it would be really helpful. At least it was helpful for me. And just seek help. Get a therapist and think through your thoughts, because sometimes you just kind of get caught up in your mind, and I mean, we're all in therapy here. So I guess it's good to say, safe to say here, therapists are very good at, if you have a good therapist, very good at kind of like bringing truth to the surface. Like I have a Christian therapist who like kind of like walks you through what is true and what's not, like what is things that you should be thinking about, things that you shouldn't, like kind of like going through those steps for you. For me, I am still working on it, but I tend to really compartmentalize things a lot, and that helped me a lot, because if I was able to put something in a box and I kind of come back to it, it helped me. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. My therapist is still working on me, but it's just talking about it was really, really helpful for me. So talking about it with friends, close friends, my husband, Tony was my fiance at the time. Just talking about it was very helpful. Even now, like it's a different form of grief for me now, in the sense that like when I think of like the fond moments is now more so the fond moments I had with my dad. And then like I'll chit chat about it a little bit with my husband, and like we'll laugh about it, and then it's kind of like fizzles away. Or like I'll talk about it with my brother, and we'll remember something, and then we'll laugh about it, kind of like, you know. So it's a different stage now, but talking about it was very, very helpful for me. So yeah.
Let's all take a deep breath.
Deep breath. John wasn't the only guest of honor here. Oh my gosh.
So let me conclude for us. And
not think that was gonna come out, but that's okay.
But that's a conversation. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Lynette, sharing this part of your journey. I'm going to say with me primarily. Thank you for taking the time to talk about something that's so personal and hard. I'm experiencing hard. I can't imagine what both of you are experiencing, but from what it sounds like, it's therapeutic for you guys. Meanwhile, I'm here like, oh my gosh. But I really thank God for both of you, and I pray that God will continue to walk with both of you in your different stages that you're in. The stages of grief are not linear. They are like jumbled up thread. So like Lynette had mentioned, extend grace to both of you. Both extend grace to yourselves. When your day is not the greatest, extend grace. When you're having a great day, thank God. And love you both. And to everybody that's listening, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being patient with us. Our last episode, I was not here because I had COVID. Imagine it still exists.
It's still a thing. Oh gosh.
Still a thing. It's crazy, but we're here. Life has been lifing.
All right. We got an episode out.
We got one out. We are just grateful, and summer is coming, so we'll connect.
We'll figure something out.
Yes.
Yes.
So again, thank you so much.
Thank you,
until next time. Bye.
Bye.